Good morning, everyone, and welcome. I'm excited to have you here today. Today, we're going to explore the fascinating world of human resources. This is the first slide, and it sets the stage for our discussion. We'll cover key aspects of HR, including strategies, challenges, and best practices. So, let's get started and dive into the essentials of human resource management. Let's take a look at the contents of today's presentation. We'll start with an introduction to human resources, which is fundamental because it helps us understand the role people play in shaping societies. Then, we move on to the distribution of population, how people are spread across different regions, and why that matters. We'll explore some interesting facts about population to give us context. Next, we will examine the density of population, which tells us how crowded certain areas are. After that, we'll discuss the factors affecting the distribution of population, things like geography, climate, and economic opportunities. Moving forward, we'll look at population change, how populations grow or decline over time, and the patterns behind these changes. We'll also explore migration, which is a key factor influencing population shifts. Then, we'll delve into population composition, including age and gender distribution, which impacts social and economic planning. Lastly, we'll analyze population pyramids, visual tools that help us understand the age and sex structure of a population. Throughout this presentation, keep in mind how all these factors connect and influence each other in shaping human societies around the world. Let's start by understanding the core idea that people are truly a nation's greatest resource. You see, all of nature's bounty, be it land, minerals, or water, only really gains value when people find ways to use and develop it. It's ultimately human effort and ingenuity that transform natural resources into something meaningful. That's why we consider human resource as the ultimate resource. When people are healthy, educated, and motivated, they can develop and utilize resources effectively to meet their needs and contribute to the nation's growth. So, in essence, the value of any resource depends on the people behind it. This highlights the vital role of human resources in shaping a nation's progress and aligns perfectly with our overall focus on understanding how human potential drives development. Let's take a closer look at how people are spread across the Earth's surface. This is known as the pattern of population distribution. It's fascinating to see that over 90% of the world's population lives on just about 10% of the land. This really highlights how uneven the distribution is. Some areas are densely populated, while others are sparsely inhabited. Understanding this uneven spread is important because it influences everything from resource allocation to urban development. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how these patterns impact societies and the environment around us. Let's take a closer look at how populations are distributed across different areas. Some regions are very crowded, like South and Southeast Asia, Europe, and Northeastern North America. These are places where you'll find dense populations, bustling cities, and lots of human activity. On the other hand, there are areas that are much more sparsely populated. These tend to be regions with challenging environments, such as high-altitude areas, tropical deserts, high mountain ranges, and dense equatorial forests. These natural conditions make it difficult for large populations to thrive. Understanding these patterns helps us see how geography influences where people settle and how populations are spread around the world. Let's take a look at some interesting facts about the distribution of the world's population. First, you'll notice that many more people live north of the equator than south of it. This is due to a variety of geographic and historical factors. Next, nearly 3/4 of the world's population are concentrated in just 2 continents, Asia and Africa. These regions are incredibly diverse and densely populated, which has significant implications for development and resource management. Finally, about 60% of all people on Earth live in just 10 countries, and all of these countries have populations exceeding 100 million. This highlights how a small number of nations dominate global population figures, influencing worldwide trends and policies. These facts help us understand the distribution and concentration of people around the world, which is essential for addressing global challenges effectively. Let's talk about the density of population. This refers to how many people live in a specific area of the Earth's surface. Usually, we measure it as the number of people per square kilometer. On average, the world has about 45 persons per square kilometer, which gives us a sense of how densely populated different regions are. Now, when we look at specific parts of the world, South Central Asia stands out because it has the highest population density. Following that, East Asia and Southeast Asia also have very high densities. Understanding these differences helps us see how population distribution varies globally and how it impacts resources, urban development, and even environmental sustainability. This ties into our overall theme of understanding global demographic patterns and their significance. Let's discuss the key factors that influence where people live around the world. First, geographical factors play a major role. Topography, for instance, affects settlement patterns significantly. People generally prefer living on plains rather than in mountainous regions or on plateaus. Plains offer more suitable land for farming, manufacturing, and various service activities. That's why you'll find the Gunga Plains, which are very fertile, among the most densely populated areas in the world. In contrast, mountainous regions like the Andes, Alps, and the Himalayas tend to have sparse populations due to the difficult terrain. Next, climate is an important factor. People tend to avoid extreme climates, those that are very hot or very cold. For example, the Sahara Desert is sparsely populated because of its scorching heat, while polar regions like parts of Russia, Canada, and Antarctica are similarly sparsely inhabited due to harsh, cold conditions. Moving on to soil quality, fertile soil is crucial for agriculture. Areas with fertile plains, such as the Gunga and Brahmaputra in India, the Huanghe and Changjiang in China, and the Nile in Egypt attract large populations because they support abundant farming. Water availability is another key factor. People prefer to settle near sources of fresh water. That's why river valleys tend to be densely populated. They provide essential water for drinking, agriculture, and industry. Conversely, deserts with scarce water sources usually have very low population densities. Lastly, mineral resources also influence settlement patterns. Regions rich in minerals, like the diamond mines of South Africa or oil fields in the Middle East, often see increased population growth because these resources create economic opportunities and jobs. In summary, factors like topography, climate, soil, water, and minerals all work together to shape where people live. Understanding these helps us see why certain areas are densely populated, while others remain sparsely inhabited. Now, let's explore some of the key social, cultural, and economic factors that influence population distribution. Starting with social factors, we see that areas with better housing, education, and health facilities tend to be more densely populated. For example, Pune is a city where improved social infrastructure attracts more people, making it a densely populated area. Moving on to cultural factors, places that hold religious or cultural significance often see large influxes of visitors and residents. Think of Varanasi, Jerusalem, or Vatican City. These locations draw people from all over the world because of their spiritual and cultural importance. Lastly, economic factors play a crucial role. Industrial areas, which offer abundant employment opportunities, tend to attract a large number of people. For instance, Osaka in Japan and Mumbai in India are both major industrial hubs, drawing workers and their families seeking jobs and economic stability. So overall, social, cultural, and economic factors are interconnected and significantly shape where people choose to live. They help us understand the patterns of population distribution across different regions. Let's talk about population change. This simply means how the number of people in a specific area or the world as a whole shifts over time. It's important to understand that the world population hasn't remained stable. It has been constantly changing. In fact, the population has grown significantly or increased manifold over the years. This growth can be attributed to a few key reasons, primarily changes in birth rates and death rates. When more people are born than die, the population increases. Conversely, if the death rate rises or birth rates fall, the population can stabilize or even decline. Understanding these dynamics is crucial because population change impacts everything from resource allocation to economic development. Throughout this presentation, we've seen how these shifts influence our societies and environments, making this topic central to understanding global change. Let's take a closer look at birth rates and death rates. The birth rate is basically how many live births there are per 1,000 people in a population, which helps us understand how quickly a population is growing from new births. One major reason for the increase in birth rates is improved conditions, such as better food supplies, which ensure mothers and babies are healthier, and enhanced medical facilities, which make childbirth safer. On the other hand, death rates are measured similarly by looking at the number of deaths per 1,000 people. When we compare these two rates, we get a clear picture of population change. The difference between the birth rate and the death rate is called the natural growth rate. Now, when this natural growth rate is high, it means the population is increasing rapidly. And as we see around the world, the overall population growth is largely driven by this rapid increase in the natural growth rate. So, understanding these concepts helps us grasp the bigger picture of how populations change over time. Migration refers to the movement of people in and out of an area, and it's a significant factor in how population sizes change over time. It's not just about people moving within the same country, it also includes international moves. When someone leaves a country to settle elsewhere, we call them emigrants. Conversely, when people arrive in a new country to live, they are immigrants. Both of these movements can have a big impact on the population dynamics of a region. Throughout this presentation, we've seen how migration influences not only numbers, but also cultural and economic aspects of societies. So, understanding migration helps us grasp the larger picture of population change and the interconnected world we live in. Now, let's look at the patterns of population change around the world. As we've seen, the rates at which populations grow can vary quite a bit from one country to another. While globally, the total population is increasing rapidly, it's important to realize that not all countries are experiencing this growth equally. For example, some countries like Kenya have very high population growth rates. This is often due to both high birth rates and high death rates. However, with improvements in healthcare, death rates tend to fall. In places like Kenya, even though death rates decrease, birth rates often stay high, which results in very high population growth rates. Understanding these patterns is essential because they help us grasp the different demographic challenges countries face today. It also ties into the broader theme of how population dynamics influence economies, resources, and development worldwide. Now let's talk about population composition. To understand how people serve as a resource, it's important to look at their qualities. People differ quite a lot in terms of age, health, education, occupation, income, and even gender. Population composition essentially refers to the structure of the population, how it is organized in terms of these different aspects. This helps us get a clearer picture of who makes up the population. How many are males or females, which age groups they belong to, and other important factors like their level of education and employment types. One interesting way to study this composition is through a population pyramid, also known as an age-sex pyramid. This visual tool helps us understand the distribution of different age groups and sexes within a country at a glance. By analyzing the population pyramid, we can see patterns that tell us about the population's growth, stability, or decline. It also highlights the predominant gender or age groups, which can influence economic planning and resource allocation. So, overall, understanding population composition is crucial because it connects directly to the broader theme of how populations impact development, resources, and social planning. Let's take a closer look at what a population pyramid tells us. It shows how the total population is divided into different age groups, such as 5 to 9 years, 10 to 14 years, and so on. This helps us understand the age distribution within a country. The pyramid also breaks down the percentage of the total population that falls into each age group, separated by males and females. This gives us a clear picture of the gender balance across different ages. Another important aspect the pyramid reveals is the number of dependents in the country. These dependents are typically classified into two groups: young dependents, like children and students, and elderly dependents, such as senior citizens. Understanding these groups is crucial because they impact a country's economy and resources. Now, focusing on the youth, the young, spirited, and hopeful population, they are the future of any nation. In India, we are fortunate to have such a vibrant resource. It's essential that we educate these young people, equip them with skills, and provide opportunities so they can become capable and productive citizens. This investment in our youth is what will drive the nation's growth and progress. Thank you for your attention.